So from the moment of conception right up until we're 25 years old, our brain is rapidly growing and developing. We can be traumatized right throughout our lives. It's just when we have those experiences in the first 18 years of our life, it can affect the way the brain grows and develops. So there's three parts to your brain, and I'm going to use my hand to demonstrate this. First, we have this lower part of your brain, which is all about our sense of safety. It's about needing to feel safe in the world. The middle part of our brain really identifies that, because the middle part of our brain is our limbic brain, which is all about our connections with other people. And our safety when we're babies and small children is really reliant on our connections with other people. We're reliant on them to look after us. The last part of our brain to grow, and this sort of starts to come online later on and constantly evolves and develops right throughout our lives, is this cortical brain, the outer layer of the brain. And this is where we think and we plan and we imagine and we do all the wonderful things that human beings can do. But if you're constantly being exposed to trauma, particularly during those developmental years, what can happen is the cortical brain can go offline and we can move into this lower part of the brain, which is where our survival lives. You know, this lower part of the brain has got one job, and that's to keep us alive. So if we've moved into that survival brain, we can see people adapt in different ways. And actually there's 4 different ways that have been identified as trauma responses. So the first response is the fight response, where we can see mood swings, outbursts of rage, narcissism at times, but it's really moving into those aggressive ways of dealing with our problems. The other response we can see is the flight response, which says, this is really painful. What I've experienced is really painful, and I don't know how to cope with that in my body. And so we can see people using drugs and alcohol. We can see people developing eating disorders. We can see suicide and self-harm attempts. But what happens if you can't run away? What happens if you can't fight your way out of danger? Well, then we move to that other part of our system, which is where the body shuts down. And we call that the freeze response. And freeze is really where we see people who are sort of helpless and hopeless, and they're really storing that pain in the body. They don't know how to move on from it. But what we might do in a freeze response is make friends with the threat. And that's the 4th trauma response, that's what we call fawn. And fawn is really about trying to make friends with the person that's hurting us so we can keep ourselves safe, so we can, minimize how much harm that person's going to do to us. And that's really leaving people wide open to be exploited. And with the best will in the world, we can't take trauma away. We live in a traumatizing world. But regardless of your responses, we all deserve respect and we all deserve compassion. And we will all respond and react in different ways to these experiences of trauma. It's really important that you look after yourself and gently start to explore the different ways that trauma might be affecting your life.